This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by lynda.com, the unparalleled online video training library. For a free 10-day unlimited trial, visit lynda.com/macvoices. And by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter to stay up to date on all the Mac Voices news. Subscribe from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Welcome to Mac Notables on Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, after a little too long, I've got Mr. Ted Landau back. Ted, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for granting us an audience.
Not granting anything. I enjoy doing it.
It's always good to talk to you, and it's been a while. It's been a couple months, actually. I think you had a busy August. I had a busy August, and we just couldn't make it happen, so we decided to wait until September, until after the announcements and everything.
And we have no official schedule anyway, so.
Yeah, we had said maybe once a month, but you never know. So the first thing I wanted to tell you, though, is that you cost me money because now I'm the owner of a Ring doorbell.
Ah, well, good.
Yes,
I'm hoping you're liking it.
I'm very much liking it. It's surprising to me how easy and smooth it works, and how much I am enjoying it. In fact, the other night I was just setting up for a show, and the doorbell rang, and it's like, oh boy, okay, because I'm so afraid that they're going to keep ringing the doorbell. So I just pulled out the iPhone, looked to see who it was, and it was somebody selling something, and so I basically just ignored it, and they went away. But it was nice not to have to worry about who it is and what's going on, and so and the few times that I have used the remote feature to talk to whoever's there, it just works like a champ.
Mm-hmm. They're going to have this new feature soon, I think, where you can just press button for automated replies. So you could just say, for instance, "Go away, or I'm going to shoot you," or something like that. Good
to know. Good to know. The other thing too, I saw that it was talked about as being a good idea, and maybe they would implement it. I don't know if they will, but to be able to turn your camera on demand, so that you just decide you want to look out and see what's going on, that you can hit the button. Mm-hmm. So, I do have to ask though, on the Ring subject, are you paying for the recording service, or are you just using it through the on demand?
There's a two-part answer to that. I think the recording service is worth it, and I would pay for it if I had to, but I am a beta tester of the software, and the gift for being a beta tester was to get a lifetime recording service, so I don't have to pay for it.
Ah, very nice. Yeah, my trial is about to run out, and I've come to really appreciate that, and I think I will be paying for that. So that was an update on a topic from the past, and thank you for the endorsement, because I thought, well, if it's good enough for Ted, it's good enough for me, and it is.
Cool. Great. Right there.
Yeah. So I'd like to talk about your financial position.
Okay. I'm not sure where we're going with this. But.
Well, your financial position now, and what it will be in a couple months after you have purchased whatever you're going to purchase from Apple's September announcements.
Well, I've already actually purchased most of what I'm going to purchase. I purchased an iPhone 6S. I gave, as I think I tweeted today, actually, I gave some thought to getting the 6S Plus. You know that we've been through this. I got the 6S last year. I got the 6 last year, and I know you got the 6 Plus last year. And I'm always tempted, and the image optical stabilization, optical image stabilization, can't even say it correctly, is appealing, especially with the 4K. But I gave it some thought, and then I just spent a couple of days tracking, so to speak, how I use the iPhone. And it occurred to me that I don't do anything where having the larger iPhone would really help. I don't use the iPhone for extensive text application. I'm not running Microsoft Word on the iPhone, or I'm not doing extensive editing of photographs on the iPhone. Basically, I use it for portable tasks. I use it to check my email, to play a game, to look up something on Safari occasionally, and whatever I do, the size of the 6S is more than adequate. And so to get the larger size, which I really don't like as a form factor. I would just sort of put up with the larger size if I thought it benefited me. I just didn't think it would benefit me, so I'm staying with the 6S. So I've already paid for that. I'm picking it up at the Apple Store on Friday at 11 o'clock, in case you're interested. I didn't have it shipped to me. At the time, part of the reason I did that is I wasn't even sure what I was going to do, and by not ordering in advance, I had the option to just cancel it. Or actually, I think I haven't paid for it. If I don't show up for the reservation, they just give it to somebody else, and they don't charge me for it. So I really have made no financial commitment yet. There will be a complication with having to go to the Apple Store and then having to go to the AT&T store to sort things out between the fact that we have two iPhones in our family, my wife and myself, and I'm doing this phone number switching that we do on alternate years, and then I'm giving up my unlimited data plan and going for the AT&T Next plan. So there's going to be some financial complications this year that will delay things a bit, but it should go pretty smoothly.
That you went exactly where I was going to go as to what your plans were on the carrier plan side, and I think you just answered that. So, but you're making a switch over. Is that what you're saying? You're buying out an old contract?
I do have AT&T now. I'm grandfathered into the unlimited data, which I've kept, but I've decided I don't want to deal with the 2-year contract anymore. It'll actually save me some money to give up on it. I tracked my data usage, and I don't think I ever use more than 2 gigabytes a month, because basically I'm on a Wi-Fi network almost all the time, and so my need to use the LTE access is pretty limited. And so I don't really need unlimited data the way I use the iPhone. And so why not save some money and get the 5? I'm going to get the 5 gigabyte plan. And on top of that, one of the nice things about AT&T is they have rollover data. So if I am using 2 gigabytes a month on average, 3 gigabytes gets rolled over each month. And so eventually I'm going to have a lot of leftover gigabytes to use anyway. So that may seem appealing. Plus now, if I go to the AT&T Next plan, I can finally use tethering, which I'm not able to do on the unlimited data. And I'll be able to get a new iPhone every year if I want, without having to deal with these 2-year contracts. So there just seemed a lot of advantages at this point, and the supposed advantage of having unlimited data just didn't really seem worth it anymore.
What convinced you to upgrade to this in the S cycle? Because you're right, we had gone over the 6 discussion. What was it? What were the compelling features that made you decide to go ahead and do it, or is it just plain old tech lust?
More the latter. I mean, I have gotten every new iPhone that has ever come out. I've never skipped one, and and on top of that is the fact that because of these 2-year contracts, I think we've talked about this before. My wife and I each have an iPhone. We got them on alternate years, and so one of our phones is always at the end of the 2-year contract every year. And so it makes sense at the end of the 2-year contract to get a new phone, because they keep charging you the same amount if you don't get the new phone as if you got the new one. So, and so that, and then the tech lust. Yeah, why not? The Force Touch feature looked really cool, and the 3D Touch, I guess, is what it's called on the iPhone, and I'm looking forward to that. It's supposedly a lot faster. That sounds nice. The camera sounds even better, though I'm more than satisfied with the camera that's in the 6. So, yeah, basically that's it.
Okay, that was sort of what I expected, and just as we record this today, we're starting to see the reviews come out from some of the usual suspects about things, and it's funny. I've decided this time to stay away from those reviews as much as I can. Inevitably, there are going to be quotes from them and things pop up on social media, but I really want to get this phone fresh, try it for myself, and kind of make my own decisions unaffected by what some of the people say. I've already seen a couple comments, good and maybe not so good, just blurps, and I want to stay away from that.
I read a few extended reviews. I read David Pogue's and Walt Osberg's and one or two others, and all reviews from people that are generally favorable to Apple anyway, and they were very favorable reviews, not surprisingly. And I did see a couple of negative comments elsewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be well received overall.
It's really interesting to watch what's happening. If I remember correctly, now Apple's sold out of iPhones even for walk-ins. I think I saw that. So if you didn't pre-order at one point or another, in fact, I know a friend of mine just told me Saturday she pre-ordered, but hers is not going to come until sometime in late October, early November. So there's no shortage of people that want iPhones.
No, I think they'll do very well. Yeah, and I don't, I read a couple of negative comments that are along the lines of, one of them said something like, iPhone technology has plateaued. There really isn't that much of a difference between the 6 and the 6S. And two things I would say. That one is I disagree. I think there's a lot of new things in the 6S, especially for an S year, so to speak, that isn't supposed to be a major transition anyway. And the other thing is, I don't know, who cares? They make it, if you don't like the upgrades from the 6 to 6S and you have a 6, stick with the 6. It's not like Apple is taking your 6 away and saying you have to spend money on a new one. And there's no obligation to get a new one or anything like that. So I don't think if Apple doesn't have a tremendous revolutionary new phone every 12 months, I don't think that's a reason to be critical.
I'm starting to look at some of those kind of articles as just more clickbait. They don't have anything useful to add. They don't have anything to report on, so they concoct opinions that are loosely supported at best.
Yeah,
just my take on it. Okay, so let's stick with the financial position. How about iPad Pro? How about Apple TV? What else will be in your shopping cart at some point?
Well, I gave up on the iPad Pro idea pretty fast. I'm not going to get one. I just don't see any need for it for me. It's huge. I put two iPad Airs next to each other to see what it would approximately look like. I thought, oh my God, that's big for an iPad. And I'm thinking this is the iPad Pro to me will appeal to a couple of types of users. One is people who definitely have a need for a larger iPad for one reason or another with the type of work that they do. I could see some graphic artists really appreciate it. Some people working in labs might really appreciate it. People who don't necessarily consider the portability to be a prime of importance because they're going to use it mostly in a limited location. And people who want to use it as a substitute for a laptop. That would be another prime target audience. People who would rather have a larger iPad than a MacBook. That isn't me. I have a MacBook Pro, a 13-inch MacBook Pro, which I really love and use a lot. And I have no intention of trying to shift to an iPad Pro to give up on using that. And so I don't see a need for it in that sense. And the iPad Air that I have now, which is probably, I don't want to minimize it. The iPad Air in some ways may be the most used device I have right now. I do spend a lot of time here at my Pro, my Mac Pro desktop as well, but I'm using the iPad continuously. But I'm perfectly happy with it. In fact, it's an iPad Air 2, I guess. Is it 2? No, the iPad Air 1, the original iPad Air. And the iPad Air 2 is the current model now that came out last year, if I'm remembering things correctly. And so there was some thought, should I update to the iPad Air 2, which I didn't do last year? And basically I said no. The same reasons I didn't do it last year, I'm not doing it this year. There just isn't enough new in the iPad Air 2 for me to want to shell out the money right now. And especially the Force Touch feature, which I thought was the most compelling new feature in the iPhone, isn't in the iPad. And I fully expect, the way Apple tends to work on these things, that they will come out with new iPads in 2016 that will have the 3D Touch feature, Force Touch 3D Touch feature. And so that's what I decided I'm going to wait for. My next iPad purchase will likely be an iPad 3 or whatever it winds up being called, that will hopefully include 3D Touch, and then I'll be happy to get a new iPad.
It's been interesting to watch Apple kind of shift the features and try to make a case for updating or buying a new product. I think there's a business perspective here. I also think there's definitely a user perspective. I have been just a little surprised that they haven't tried to unify things more a bit across the product line. But on the other hand, they have to have something that differentiates the different models and different use cases. So I guess maybe I shouldn't be quite that surprised. But and then there's the little issue of supply and manufacturing these things. Just because we want it, maybe even they want it, doesn't mean that it's realistic. They could do themselves a bit more harm than good if they put it out there, and it's either not right or they can't supply them in the quantities people want.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that the 3D Touch wasn't in the iPad Pro, since that's an all-new model, and figured they could have done that, but they chose not to for whatever reason. And also, speaking of the iPad, I'll also say that one of the features in iOS 9 that I was really looking forward to was the split screen and whatever else that's called, where you're not really having the split screen, but you're having the other application moving on the side. And I don't have the split screen capability because I need the iPad Air 2 for that. But the ability to have a second application slide in from the side, I've spent a lot of time using, and I like it. And it isn't quite as useful as I thought it would be, I guess. It may be that some apps need some updating. I find that I have a lot of minor problems when I start using it. Like, for instance, there was one pair of apps that I was using where after I slid over to get to a second app, which I then wanted to copy something from, which I then had trouble copying something from it because the app itself wasn't responding the way it does when it's a full app, and I was having a lot of difficulty copying the text I wanted to copy. And then once I did copy it and went back to the original app, the keyboard, the virtual keyboard in the original app disappeared and wouldn't come back until I quit the app and relaunched it. And so, instead of turning out to be a time saver, it wound up costing me more time than if I'd just done it the old-fashioned way. But I assume some of those things will be worked out as apps update to be more aware of that feature.
Yeah, I don't know about you with your set of apps, but I've been downloading, it seems like, a pile of updates from developers as they some came before iOS 9 and before before iOS 9. Others have come after, and some I think are bug fixes of things that came out before. But the developer community does seem to be embracing iOS 9 in a big way and these new capabilities. I know I've been using the picture-in-picture feature, and I'm not sure if your iPad will support that or not.
It does.
Yeah, and I do love that because it's not quite like having a second screen, but it becomes a little closer to it without using a split screen. Mm-hmm. And I think that's great. Just the whole implementation of the ability to zoom in or enlarge that picture-in-picture. It's one of those things you think, why didn't somebody do this before? And of course, that there's a lot more engineering behind it that has to happen before it just appears on your iPad.
Yeah, I see. I mean, for my use, I'm curious what you're using it for. I see that picture-in-picture thing as useful for things that I'm passively interested in, as opposed to wanting to manipulate. Like if I'm watching a YouTube video or something like that, I can see continuing to watch the YouTube video in the background if I'm waiting for some particular segment, say, to appear that I was really interested in, and I don't need to pay full attention to it until that happens, and then I can be busy doing something else in the main window while I glance at the YouTube video in the picture-in-picture or something like that. But yeah, I can see that being useful. I haven't used it much yet.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible to develop ADD, but if it is, I've got it because, it seems like I'm never doing one thing at a time anymore. You're always doing one or at least two, and you hit it on the head. Put something up there that you're passively watching, that you can listen to the dialogue, and if something exciting is happening, you can either look over or zoom in or more accurately enlarge the screen, but it helps me churn through things that I want to churn through just a little bit faster.
Yeah, well, in terms of the ADD thing, I mean, it's probably more a reflection of my age than anything else, but when I read about people that, for instance, will be tweeting to their friends while watching a TV program, that will never be me. I mean, I can imagine it being me maybe during a sports event where where you don't have to pay attention every second, and you're watching it live, say with commercials. Maybe you can even tweet during commercial or something like that. But when I'm watching an episode of a dramatic series, like Mad Men or whatever, Game of Thrones on HBO or whatever, there's no way that I want to be sitting and tweeting to somebody else while I'm watching. I want that to get my full attention, and I'm not going to be ADD enough that's going to change.
Today's edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by lynda.com, the unparalleled online video training library. Get a full, free 10-day trial at lynda.com/macvoices. I've been telling you about lynda.com now for some time, about the breadth of their topics, from graphics design to business, photography to website building, and much, much more. About the depth of their training that takes you from the starting line to a deep dive in topics like iOS development and video production. More than a few people have used lynda.com to change their careers. Even more have changed their lives by adding or improving skills they needed for their work or just for themselves. That's one of the great parts about learning with lynda.com. You decide what you want to learn. Another great thing is that you get to decide how you want to learn. Watch any of lynda.com's video courses at the pace you want. Watch them once, watch them multiple times, watch them in order, watch them out of order, or just jump to the parts that you need. Watch them on your Mac or on your iPhone or on your iPad. Watch them streaming online, or use the lynda.com iOS app to download and watch them offline. Watch them when you want, where you want, how you want. I've been adding new courses to my lynda.com queue that I want to check out. That includes not just existing courses like Up and Running with Photos for OS X, but new courses like SEO Tools Fundamentals, Squarespace 7 Essential Training, and the new iPad Tips and Tricks, because you can never have enough iPad tips and tricks. If you are in the corporate world, or if you're a Microsoft Office fan, a couple other new courses you might be interested in include Office for Mac 2016 New Features, and Up and Running with Office for iOS devices. Those are just a few of the over 3,600 video courses available on lynda.com. Yes, I said 3,600. So there's certainly going to be a whole lot of material that you're going to be interested in and that is going to benefit you for work or for your personal goals and satisfaction. Best of all, you can try lynda.com right now for a free, full 10 days by signing up at lynda.com/macvoices. During those 10 days, you can watch any of the 3,600 courses. Any of them. The legacy material on long-standing favorite programs and subjects? Any of them. And as many of them as you can watch in 10 days. Absolutely free when you sign up at lynda.com/macvoices. Do yourself a favor and sign up for your free lynda.com trial membership right now, and do me a favor by signing up at lynda.com/macvoices. It lets lynda.com know that you heard it here and that Mac Voices listeners appreciate the very best in video training. That's lynda.com/macvoices for 10 free days of unlimited video training to help you learn something new. Thanks to lynda.com for supporting Mac Voices. Again, I love these discussions because it all comes down to how we use our technology and how we do whatever it is we do, whether you call it work, whether you call it fun, or the intersection of those two, how your technology enhances your life. And so the sporting events is a great example. I know I almost had to turn off Twitter during some of the political debates just because the commentary was becoming overwhelming. I was having more trouble keeping up with the commentary on Twitter than I was paying attention to the debates. And it's like, okay, now it's time to get my priorities straight here. What am I really trying to absorb? So, speaking of iOS 9, what has been your experience with it so far, other than what we just talked about?
Very good. I saw a comment on Twitter. I forget who said it. Maybe Jason Snell. I don't remember for sure. But said something like, what they really like about iOS 9 is that it's just like iOS 8, only more refined or better. It's like there aren't a lot of new standalone features. It's just that everything that existed in iOS 8 is now better. And I tend to agree with that. It's very comfortable. I go to Notes, and Notes has been enhanced with all sorts of new features, and you just sort of trip over it when you try to use Notes. You go to Safari and you see some new features, and you go. I'm not blanking for a second on some of the other things. The new way that the multitasking works, where they sort of overlap instead of being in separate things. That just happens when you try the same old thing that you used to do, and it just works a little differently now, and you find that that's an improvement from how it used to be, and so on. So yeah, I'm enjoying that. The one thing that is not completely new, but the one thing that you won't trip over is the ad blocking that's gotten a lot of publicity, because you actually have to download an extension and install it before you get the ad blocking. But people will figure that out, I'm sure. People already have figured that out.
Ted, let's touch on the ad blocking for a second. And I think no matter who you talk to about this, there's always a bit of a fresh perspective. Now that you're not writing for an organization on a regular basis, you're pretty much just sticking with your blog. But you've seen a lot of these models come and go. You've seen the rise of advertising. You saw a lot of different advertising models. How do you feel about the ad blocking, and both from the publisher side and also from the reader side? And the one thing I'd love to hear your thoughts are sort of on the morality of this, because that seems to be becoming a big part of this discussion. Is what are we as readers morally obligated to do? Are we morally obligated to watch ads?
Well, my short answer to that is no, we aren't. The article I read that compared ad blocking to robbing something from the Apple Store, which has gotten a lot of play on the internet, I think is way off base. It's literally apples and oranges. I understand. I mean, a couple of caveats I'll put in at the end, but my initial reaction is that we and I tweeted about this the other day, and I saw there was also a column today from Kirk McLaren on it as well. We almost everybody blocks ads in some manner or fashion. If you turn the page of a newspaper without looking at the ad that's there, you've essentially defeated the purpose of that ad. If you fast forward through commercials on your DVR, you've defeated the purpose of that ad. If you I could listen to list numerous other examples. If you hang up on a robocall, you've essentially defeated the purpose of that robocall. If you get mail in snail mail and you don't open it and just throw it out directly because it looks like junk mail, you defeated the purpose of whoever sent you that envelope. So are you obligated to open junk mail and read it? Are you obligated to sit through commercials? The answer is no, in my opinion, and I'm not obligated to deal with those ads. Now, people will say, well, there's a slight difference. You can ignore the ads, assuming that's possible, on the internet, but it's different. Ignoring them is different from blocking them, and somehow blocking them implies something different. Because if you, especially in some of the models, if you ignore the ad, the advertiser has no way of knowing it. But if you block the ad so it doesn't load, that brings up a different metric and can hurt the publisher, the advertiser, whatever, in a different sort of way. And I can be a little sympathetic to that. Certainly, I don't want to, be responsible for destroying the living and profession of people who are writing on the internet and using advertising to support themselves. But I don't honestly see much distinction between that. If it's legal for me to block ads, and apparently it is, and Apple is certainly supporting it by including it in iOS 9, then I don't have an ethical problem with doing it. And I don't. And the dire predictions that industries will die as a result and things will go out of business, I think are overblown. I don't think it's going to amount to that bad. But I think in the end, there may be a period of transition, but I think that's happened before, and this will be another example of it. It isn't as if the internet's going to be destroyed. People will find a different way. I did see a good comment. Somebody said something like, people say that sites will adapt, quote unquote, air quotes there, and whoever was talking about it said, yes, if you look at evolution, whenever something adapts, a lot of things die along the way. And there's a lot of death on the way to adaptation, and and that's true. And so, yes, some things probably will die as a result of a new adaptation, but maybe it's for the good. The dinosaurs died, and in the meteor, and mammals emerged as a result, and we're here probably because of that. So, maybe from our perspective, it's probably good that the dinosaurs died. Dinosaurs, not so much. And so, yes, there'll be some problems, but I'd like to think that the end result will be something better because which I guess gets to the main issue. The main problem is that advertising has gotten out of hand. Back when I was doing McFix-It, advertisements were relatively unobtrusive. But now I go to a website. I'm tempted to curse here. I'll try not to. You go to a website and you get these pop-over screens that appear, and half the time now, one would just happen this morning to my wife, there isn't any obvious way to dismiss it. There's no little X anywhere or anything like that. And I'm saying, how do I get rid of this thing? And then you finally figure out a way to get rid of it, and you scroll 5 lines of text, and another popover appears. And you find that every 5 lines of text, you have to deal with another popover. And then in the background, a voice starts talking about some car that they want you to buy. And you say, where the hell is that coming from? And it's from some other web page that you loaded, and we're going to get back to. And it turns out that there was some embedded advertisement in the web page that started talking after the web page was sitting there for about 20 seconds or something like that, and you have to go find it and mute it, and it just gets overwhelming. And if advertisers were able to not be so obtrusive and overbearing, I think there wouldn't be so much motivation to block them. And so to some extent, they're a victim of their own excesses, and I don't feel very sorry for them.
I've always been a little surprised that any kind of those ads work. I mean, I guess there's, as somebody said, there's a sucker born every minute. But those are the products that would push me. It would push me away from it. It has pushed me away from those products. I don't mind somebody having a banner ad on their website, and I think that's perfectly legitimate. I don't mind an ad tile somewhere. I mean, I use those on the MacVoices site, and I think that's perfectly legitimate. I absolutely do not mind having those kind of things there for the sponsors of the show and for the readers of the show. But if somebody, you're right, is popping it up and making it obnoxious, I mean, not only is that going to push me away from the product, it's going to push me away from the site too. And I'm just like, and we both have friends at Macworld, and I know the writing staff makes pretty clear that they're separate. But some of the autoplay things that pop up on the Macworld site just make you crazy. And it's like, okay, who thought this was a good idea?
Those usually aren't even advertisements. We should add. Those are often autoplay videos related to the article.
Yeah,
and they're still online.
Yeah, sometimes. And, if you're at the office and you hit the wrong button, then everybody in the office knows you were looking at something, whether it was on point or not. And that's kind of not, that's not to say that you should be or shouldn't be surfing at work. But the whole point is it's unexpected, and it can be obnoxious to those around you. And it pushes you away instead of dragging you in. And at this point, I'm surprised that marketers, advertisers, and web publishers haven't figured that part out yet.
Well, somebody must. I mean, I'm with you. When a pop-up window appears on my screen, I don't even look to see what it's advertising. I could care less. The only thing I'm looking for is how to get rid of it. I mean, there's never been a pop-up that appeared on my computer that had any positive effect for me, and apparently similarly for you. And I'm sure there are a lot of people like us. But the question is, what percentage is different from us? I remember reading articles about junk mail in the old days when it was all snail mail before computers, and I remember reading an article that said something like only 1 or 2% of the people that you send junk mail to have to respond for it to be worth it. So 98 out of 100 people can say this is garbage, and you're still making a profit. And so if you're in the 98, you could be thinking, wow, me and everybody I know just ignores this stuff. How can it possibly be worth it? Well, you just don't happen to know the 1 or 2 people that responded that make it all worth it for those people.
And that I love that statistic. I've heard it too. And of course, I look at in a world that is trying to become more and more green, and we seem to be holding more and more people's feet to the fire about being green. Whether you agree with that or not, that's what's happening. That I have it. In fact, just before we came on, I picked up my mail from my mailbox today. I'm going through. I have one bill, and otherwise I have a fistful of junk mail that is sitting in the trash can right over there. And I mean, it's a complete waste. It's a complete and utter waste.
Yeah, it's gotten so bad. In the last month or two, I've instituted a new policy for myself, where I used to be that if I got junk mail, snail mail, junk mail, we're talking about now, that was from some organization that I supported and gave money to, I would at least open it to see what it was. But then I found I was getting so much of that even that became annoying. And so now what I've done is I try to give all my money contributions in December, the end of the year. And now I've just decided that until December rolls around, I'm just going to ignore everything that I get, even from the companies that and organizations that I support. I don't even open them anymore. I just tear them in half and throw them out.
It's not a bad policy. Not a bad policy. And I so bad want to go down that trail to talk about charitable organizations, but we're not going to, because that's just going to generate a lot of bad emails for both of us. How about the Apple TV, the new Apple TV? Is that in the plan?
Yes, definitely. It's probably the thing I'm most excited about. I've been waiting for a new Apple TV for years. As I think we may have talked about here before, I currently have 3 Apple TVs. We have 3 TVs in our house. They each serve different functions. There's a bedroom one that we have from when my wife and I want to watch TV at night when we're in bed and whatever. Obviously, hopefully, it's about the only time we watch there. And then we have one we have a 2-level house, and we have one in our dining room, living room area that we watch when we want to watch. Often when we're eating, because that's where we eat, or when we just happen to be in that area. And then our big, large family room, so to speak, TV, where we watch movies and stuff like that, is down in our lower level of our house. And so over the years, I've gradually added an Apple TV to each of them. So they all now have Apple TVs. And when I first heard that the new Apple TV was coming out, my first thought was, great, I'm just going to dump all of them and get 3 new ones to replace the 3 old ones. But the new one is such a radical change from the old one that I'm no longer in a hurry to do that. I'm going to get one new Apple TV for the family room where the big screen is, and see how that plays out before I decide whether I need to get one for every room. I mean, some of the features I think I don't need in every room. The Siri remote control, for instance, I could see using that where I watch most of my TV, which is downstairs. But I don't think I need that in the bedroom just to watch Netflix, which is basically mostly what we're doing in the bedroom.
I'm not exactly surprised. I want to ask you though, as someone who does enjoy games, does the gaming aspect of the new Apple TV impress you or seduce you at all?
I think it's a great move on Apple's part if it's implemented well. I have said for years that Apple should be doing something like that. That there are all these great games on the iPhone. iOS games have been immensely popular. My use of Angry Birds is well documented in that regard, and there have been a lot of other great games. And to the point now, I think I haven't seen statistics, but I imagine that the iPhone is a more popular game platform now than any other portable game system. The Nintendo and Sony portable handheld game systems are, I imagine, less popular now than the iPhone. Simply because everybody has an iPhone. Again, if you want to get a portable PlayStation or something like that, you have to have a second device that you're carrying around. With the iPhone, it's in your pocket anyway, and when you're done reading your email, you can just shift over to a game. It's really neat. So I said, well, okay, so why doesn't Apple try to capitalize on that with the Apple TV? So that when you have an Apple TV, they could actually start competing to some extent with the console games. I don't expect that the Apple TV will ever really be a total competitor for Xbox or something like that. But still, you could get a wide assortment of iOS-like games on the Apple TV that would allow you to play them on a larger screen and with this Wii-like remote that's coming along, where you can wave it around and have it do actions in the game. And I think it would be really great. They already tried to do that a little bit with AirPlay, where you would throw an iOS game onto the large screen through AirPlay from your iPad, say, or something like that. But to actually have it be integrated, I think is a good idea. And so, yeah, I don't know how much I'll wind up using it. My interest in games is on a slow decline, I think, as I get older, particularly the sort of games that would be appropriate for. Which are more action-oriented games and stuff like that. But I'll certainly give it a try, and I think it'll be great. And along with that, the other thing that I've advocated for years, which I was happy to see come along, is that there's going to be an app store where you can actually buy these games and add other channel equivalents and stuff like that. For years, I've wanted to see something like that. Roku has something similar already, and it's one of the reasons that people like my son, for instance, prefer the Roku to the Apple TV, because there's so many more options there that you can add on your own. And so now Apple's going to be in that ball game as well. And when you throw those things in and combine the new Siri remote that I just talked about, which has some really great features. I love the one that just knocked my socks off, as it were, when I was watching the media event, was the one where you say, "What did he say?" or something like that. And it goes back 15 seconds and replays the last 15 seconds with closed captioning turned on, so you can find out exactly what the person said. That alone would be worth something for people like me who have trouble sometimes in movies when there's a lot of background noise, hearing what the person said, and that would just be great. And then some of the searches, to be able to just talk into your remote and say, "I'd like to see a list of all James Bond films that star Sean Connery," or something like that, and then just have those appear on the screen without you having to type anything. I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, I think it's going to say.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it too, and I'm with you. I think the App Store might be the most exciting part for me, because I have an idea this is going to turn the Apple TV and my big screen into devices that I haven't even really thought about yet. And I have no idea what those are. Or I'd share it, or either that or go talk to a developer. But I just, knowing what has happened with the iPhone when it came out, when the App Store was there, and suddenly my phone can do things that I seriously doubt any of the original designers thought about ever having it do. Now I'm going to potentially have that option with the Apple TV. And I think that's the most exciting, that unknown factor, that it's going to become just more than a media consumption device. It'll become more of, I think, an information consumption device.
Absolutely. I mean, it probably is true to say that the single most important thing that happened in the history of the iPhone, other than the development of the device itself, is the App Store. If you try to imagine what the iPhone would be like today if it was still limited entirely to only the apps that came with the iPhone, it would be an entirely different world, and a much less useful one for the iPhone. And if the App Store for the Apple TV can have 1/10 of the effect that the App Store for the iPhone had, it'll be tremendous.
Yeah, very much looking forward to it. I'm with you. The Apple TV is definitely on the shopping list. The iPad Pro, I haven't quite decided whether I'd like to try one or not. I've tried a Mini, and we didn't even talk about the new Mini, but I've tried the Mini, and it's okay, but with the iPhone 6s Plus soon to be in my hand, it's not enough of a jump. To the Air, or excuse me, the iPad Air absolutely is enough of a jump to have me justify it. But with the phone, no. Whether the iPad Pro will take the iPad's place, I don't know. I too have I've drawn it out on paper, and it's like, okay, how is this too big? How will this feel? And I think you're almost going to have to put it in your hand and play with it to make your decision.
Or hands, as it were.
Or yeah. since we're on a TV roll, I also want to get an update on your adventures with your TiVo, because I've seen little things come out on social media, and I know this is something that we both share a love of TiVo, even though I don't use it as much as I used to. What's going on with your TiVo situation?
Well, it's a little bit of a long story, so maybe you can bear with me on this. The setup that I had in my house, it was a hodgepodge of sorts. I had a TiVo that I've had almost since TiVo came into existence. I brought it with me from Michigan to California when we moved here 11 years ago. And I upgraded it to a TiVo HD. And that's what I've had for the longest time. I don't know how many years. And it's been okay. And partly it's been okay because it only is in our dining room TV location. And for the other two TVs, I have a Comcast DVR and a satellite Comcast that can play the DVR recordings on it. And it's worked well. And it's actually been kind of nice to have two DVRs in the house because it just gave me more hours of DVR recording space than I would otherwise have if I just had one. But it was always also a little bit of a pain in that I'd frequently be in a situation where, for whatever reason, I mean, these are first world minor problems, but nonetheless, it would be occasionally a pain where I would record something, say, on the TiVo, and then I'd want to watch it in the bedroom for some reason, and I couldn't because that was where the Comcast machine was. And I just learned to put up with that. I try to figure out where I would want to watch something and make sure that I recorded it there. And that's how things were going along. And then one day I got in the email about a month or two ago from TiVo saying that special for people like me, which they described as people who have had a TiVo for 5 years or more that they haven't upgraded, and I think had a lifetime subscription, but I'm not sure that was another prerequisite or not. But anyway, I had a TiVo for a long time that they hadn't upgraded. They were offering a TiVo with a lifetime subscription. Yeah, I think so. You had to have a lifetime subscription. TiVo with a lifetime subscription for a fantastic price. The lifetime subscription, they were only going to charge $100. Normally, it's $500. So essentially, I was getting $400 off. There's no way that I've seen an ability to buy a TiVo with a lifetime subscription that was going to match that. And so I said, okay, I'm going to get a Roamio. And then I got the Roamio Plus at that point, put it in the dining room, and I absolutely loved it. I wasn't prepared. I mean, Roamio's been around for a couple of years now, so it's not brand new. I don't need to talk about all the new features for people who are into it. I'm sure they know, but it's a world of difference from the TiVo HD, as people who have upgraded know. Particularly the mobile app syncing is much different. You have full access to the TiVo from your iPad or iPhone. You can set a recording from there very easily. It was a big deal in the older system. You can watch your recordings on your iPad with no problem whatsoever, no matter where you are. It's really impressive. And of course, the search features and the Netflix and Amazon integration and Hulu integration. I mean, it's just a world difference. I love it so much. I said, I'm thinking maybe I don't want to have the Comcast satellite anymore. That's in my bedroom. Maybe instead of having two Comcasts and one TiVo, I should have two TiVos and one Comcast. Except I didn't want to deal with having to buy another TiVo with another lifetime subscription. And that's when I became aware, which I was dimly aware of but hadn't paid too much attention to, that in the last couple of years, TiVo has come out with these TiVo Minis, which are fantastic. The TiVo Mini, which you can get on Amazon for $125, and doesn't require a cable card like the main DVR does, so you don't have to deal with Comcast, which is another issue I'll mention in a second. And so you don't have to pay for subscription anymore. I think initially they wanted to charge a monthly subscription for the Mini, but now it's totally it comes with its own lifetime subscription for the $125. And so you can put it in a secondary room, and it's like having a full TiVo in that other room. You can set recordings from the room. You can play anything from the TiVo DVR that's paired with in the other room. Everything that you can do with the TiVo DVR itself, you can do with the TiVo Mini. The only limitation is you don't have a second DVR built into it. You're feeding off the main DVR, which is perfectly fine with me. And so once I did that, suddenly the nickel dropped After all these years, I said, why the hell am I keeping the Comcast in the basement? I could get another TiVo Mini and be done. And now, for the first time since I moved into this house for 11 years, I wouldn't have to worry about where I'm recording something in terms of what room I want to watch it in later, because I'd be able to watch whatever I record in any of the 3 rooms. And this makes perfect sense. And so that's what I did. So I got a second TiVo Mini and set that up as well. And as a bonus, when you return these Comcast boxes, you get charged less per month because these are rentals, as people know. And so I was paying $30 a month for the 2 Comcast boxes. And so now I'm saving $360 a year by not having to do that, which is helping to offset the cost of the TiVo. And I also, for that matter, was able to sell my old TiVo for a substantial amount of money because it came with a lifetime subscription. Which makes them more valuable than they otherwise would be. And so that further offset the cost of the TiVo. And so by the time I was done, it looks like I'm going to have this new TiVo setup with the TiVo Minis, and in something like 18 months, I'll be turning a profit compared to where I was before. And so I'm pretty pleased with it overall.
I have not looked into the Romeos or the TiVo Minis. But this is really intriguing to me, because I know that that's been one of the big features, Comcast in particular, but a lot of the cable companies have talked about. You get one DVR in one room and then get the other one in another room, and you can pass the recordings back and forth. And it sounds like this has the TiVo functionality that we all love, with exactly that key feature.
Yes, absolutely. And the Comcast X1 system is similar, I think. I didn't have the X1 system. I had an older Comcast system, but with the Xfinity X1, whatever. But in the system that I had, you couldn't set recordings from the auxiliary TiVos. The auxiliary TiVos had very limited functionality compared to the main unit. Whereas with the TiVo Minis, you have 100% of the capabilities of the basic TiVo in every room. And so the other thing that happened, to just sort of finish up, is now that I had one TiVo that was going to control all 3 rooms, then I started thinking, well, what about, do I want greater recording capacity? I got the Plus, which had 150 hours. And so I said, and I can afford it. So I called up, I said, I'm thinking of shifting from the Plus to the Pro, which has tripled the storage. For a couple $100 more, you get 450 hours of recording capability. And they said I could still do it because I was in the 30-day window. And so I did it. So now I'm actually waiting for my new TiVo Pro to arrive on Thursday and swap out the TiVo Plus that I have now, which has the downside, the temporary downside, of I have to go through the entire installation procedure again, which took several days. Not entirely because of TiVo. There were some hassles setting up the TiVo Mini, I must say. Everything works great once it's set up. It's just the setup that can get to be a pain. But the other major pain that I had was Comcast, because even with the TiVo, you have a cable card, and you have to pair the cable card with the TiVo device. And that Comcast seemed incapable of doing. And it was that's one of the things I tweeted about the other day that you're probably thinking of, where it was just infuriating. I couldn't believe it. I was on the phone for like 2.5 hours, and they still couldn't get the cable card properly paired with the TiVo. And I'm talking, I says, what is it? These cable cards have been around for like, 10, 12 years? I don't know. You're all acting like they were just invented 30 minutes ago and you've never heard of them. I mean, give me a break. And eventually people had to come out to the house. And 2 people in a truck came out to the house. Yeah. And I said, you got it. And they walked in and they made a phone call and everything worked. 30 seconds later.
I had that exact same scenario, and this is a while back when I got the cable card for the TiVo that's in the house where I am now, and but it took 2 visits. It took 2 visits. The first guy said they let me bring the cable card home and do it. So he came out and said, no, they told you wrong. Here's the right way they set up. He left, and it worked for about 30 minutes, and then it stopped. And so they sent somebody else out, and he said, no, this is all set up wrong. And he was able to get it set up right, or at least functioning. But I can't decide whether it's one of those things where they're hoping you'll just give up and go with their system or what. But why is it so tough?
There's no good reason. Either it's deliberate or it's stupidity. Those are the only two explanations. Yeah, I tend to go with stupidity. I don't give them enough credit for being smart enough to have a policy that says this is how we're going to eliminate TiVo from the world.
On that very bright, optimistic note, Ted, we've been at it for a while. Thank you so much. It's good to catch up. There's so many things I want to get to, but we'll save it for next time, and hopefully it won't be quite as long in between. You're still writing for the Slanted Viewpoint?
Yeah, if you call it that. I really I get a lot of ideas in my head of things that I want to write about, and maybe 1 in 10 actually get written. I'm really in a retirement mode and trying to just take it easy. Maybe in a year or so, after I feel like I've really established that I'm in retirement, I'll start writing more frequently for Slanted Viewpoint, but which is my personal blog for those of you who don't know. But that's really basically it. I'm done, as I said in my farewell column, I'm done writing for any place else, writing for money, writing for others. I'm done with that. So, and I'm sticking to that. So, yeah.
Well, anytime you feel like putting finger to keyboard, I was about to say pen to paper, but that's kind of archaic. So finger to keyboard, we all appreciate it.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you saying that.
And we'll see you again back here on Mac Notables.
Definitely.
Great.
Okay.
See you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Notables on Mac Voices. We hope to talk to Ted again soon, but we've got more of the Mac Notables coming up for you in short order. As always, yeah, really, yeah.
Besides me, you have on the show?
Oh, yeah. Well, once in a while. I have to fill in something between your appearances.
I'm sure they're good. Definitely watch them.
Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Mac Voices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest Mac Voices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free Mac Voices magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.